Oh, hello YouTube. This is my second supplementary video that covers Friday. I did say in my first supplementary video that I had another job, and because of the nature of the job I wasn't going to do a video on that day. But this is just to give you some weekly stats for last week and to tell you a bit about that job, which I actually quite enjoyed in the end, although it was a bit of good bits and bad bits, let's put it that way. But I do like experimenting, and it was an experiment. So when I left you in my first video for Friday, I was on my way up to Bolton and I delivered that, but on the way I was trying to find a job from the northwest, either staying locally or coming back towards my home. And I actually rang a shipper who has a WhatsApp group that I'm kind of get messages from. I'm not sure I'm formally part of it, but I get messages, and I've sort of now rung the guy enough that he knows who I am, and sometimes, rarely, I'm in the right place at the right time and I can get a job from them. But it's always worth a call if I'm in the northwest. So I rang that contact and we had a bit of a chat, and I said, it's a long shot, but I'm going to be around your area for a job today or heading back tomorrow. Please let me know if you have anything. Can you sort of bear me in mind? And quite quickly after that I got a call back, and I remember where I was, and I now know the name of the road. It was something like the A628, I'm guessing, but it's the Woodhead Pass, which sort of, in my mind, goes from Sheffield to Manchester, but it might not be quite that simple. But all I know about it, apart from the reservoir being an amazing sight, is that the phone signal is really bad for me as I cross that set of mountains. I want to call them the Pennines, those mountains, because they're between sort of Lancashire and Yorkshire, so I'm pretty sure they are Pennines. But if you know the area and you know that road, I'd love to know if those hills there are the Pennines. So anyway, I had a phone call as I was approaching from the east, that road, and the guy offered me a job going from Bury to Grimsby, but it was a late pickup, and I quite enthusiastically said I would do it. But this was text. We were texting each other. Sorry, not a phone call. I was texting him that I would do it, and then I said how much. But then this is when my phone signal went out, and I didn't get a message back for a while, and it was basically asking me, "Can you do it still?" So we were texting messages, but they were interrupted by phone signal coming in and going out. So it wasn't until I got over the other side, quite close to Manchester, that the signal came back. And the outcome of that is that I was offered the job. Now, I took a bit of a risk because I accepted the job before I knew anything about the job. I didn't know how many miles it was, what sort of size van they needed. I didn't know what the load was, which I don't really tend to know. But importantly, I didn't know how much they were going to pay me. And then I got a message saying one message said they'd pay £100. So I thought, I'm going to take a bit of a step in the dark here, and I'm going to just trust that that's a fair price, because I'm driving, I'm at no bad signal area, I can't really check much of the details. I felt that because of the time of the booking, it was probably, I needed a bit of a premium for that. The second thing is I took a bit of a leap of faith to trust them, but also I felt that it was an opportunity for me just to build up another relationship with someone. So that's not on CX. So I thought, I'm not going to make a fuss about this. I'm just going to do the job, and I'm going to see, is the job itself worth doing, because of the time I'm doing it, and where I'm going to end up, and what I'm taking, and is it worth the money? And if it is, maybe it was something that I could do more regularly if I'm in the area. So I don't think I've mentioned the time yet, right? So it was a 11:30 p.m. pickup going from Bury, I think, to Grimsby, which is about an hour and 3/4 trip. So when I did look at the miles, so the loaded miles was something like 108. It was for a small van job, and if I was going to bid on that on the CX, I'd have gone £110, so £1 a mile, plus a tenner because it's quite late, and I would have gone for 120. And I feel that at 120 I would do that job again. For 100, I thought it was fair enough. I don't feel I've been sort of taken advantage of, but I do feel because of the time it needs a bit more, in my view, a bit more money. Anyway, so I got so from Bolton to Bury was really good. It's only about 15 minutes away. So I drove off my pickup, which was about 7:30ish. I drove over to the pickup point, and there was a Asda there. So I went and got some food, sat in the car park and ate some of the food, and then went and parked outside the depot that I was collecting from. And I almost parked inside. The gate was open. I thought I could just park in their car park, couldn't I? I'm sure no one's going to mind. But I just couldn't face quite doing that. That felt a little bit too cheeky for me. But maybe next time I might try it, because it's a legitimate place to stay, I think, for picking up from them. Anyway, I basically had a nap in the back of my van for 3 hours or so. And the other thing about this job, which I think it needs more money personally, is, and I didn't know this at the start, was that they or somebody they work for calls you an hour before the pickup to check that you're still going to make it. But I was right outside the depot and I got a call at 10:30 saying, "Are you going to make it?" Well, yeah, yes I am. I appreciate the need to do that, but I'm not someone that wouldn't let them down. But they didn't know that, did they, I suppose? But I bet they did that for all drivers. And the thing about that I find disappointing is, well, that's an hour before. I've now got to sort of wake up from my nap an hour before the thing to answer this call. It does affect the napping potential that I had. So I found that disappointing, although I understood why they did it, just because it made it more of an interruption and less rest. Anyway, so I made it on site exactly at 11:30. They were ready. I got loaded up with a couple of boxes, and then I remember went towards Grimsby. Now, I was very conscious of how I felt tiredness-wise, and at this point, at 11:30, I felt quite good. I didn't sleep in the back of the van when I was resting, but I definitely rested my eyes. I definitely had I was napping, I would say. So it definitely has some value to resting. Anyway, so I made it to some of the roads were closed on the way to Grimsby, but I kind of made it in good time. And the traffic was very no bad traffic at that time. So by the time I left the site at about 12, I got to once I had found the correct site, I arrived at 1:45. By the time I got off site, it was 2 o'clock. And my original plan was going to be to stay at Grimsby, tramp out there, and then try and get a job southwards in the morning towards home. However, it was only an hour and a half from home, and it was Saturday. That was Saturday morning now. And I thought, well, let's just go home. I'll be quite late, but at least I get to stay in my bed and I have a lie-in in the morning before my dialysis. If I stay in Grimsby, what is the chance there's going to be a job for me, any job for me at all? And what's the chance it's going to go from there back towards my home? I think it's remote. So I made the decision to drive straight home. The only issue I had, which is of my own making, was that I'd not had enough fuel to get all the way home. I could get halfway back, but not enough to get all the way back. So I was on the way back from Grimsby. Slight aside, the road from Grimsby to my house is a lovely route. It's through the country. Lincolnshire Wolds it's called. It's a lovely route. I didn't really go any main roads, I went on some back roads, and it's some really nice housing, stone housing, and it's just it was a really nice, relaxing trip down. But well, it would have been if I wasn't trying to find fuel. The countryside was great. The lack of fuel stations was not great. I was trying to get a fuel station with my fuel card. That limited the number I could go to. I was trying to find a fuel station with a fuel card that was open. That limited it to one, which is a Tesco in Market Raisin, I think it was. So I got there with about 7 miles to spare of my fuel tank, and it was closed. Although the app said it was open, it was definitely closed. And so I had no choice here but to open up my spare tank of diesel, which has 10 litres in, and I had to utilise that to get myself home, which was fine. I try not to use that. That's been in my under my passenger seat for about 2 years, not ever been used before, but it's there for a reason, and that was the reason I used it for. So I got home in the end, by the time I sort of wiggled around the country roads and got my fuel sorted out at 4:30. Now, the job itself, I would definitely do it again. It was a great little job. I'd do it for a bit more money. I would definitely, if it was 120, I would do it every day. I'd do it no problem at all if I was in the area. But the issue I had, which is obviously, and if I was to go do it again, I probably would go home again, but I'd obviously try and make sure I had fuel and go straight home quickly. So I'd probably be home for about 3:30 if I did it without the fuel stop. The problem I had on this occasion was that I woke up about 8:30 the following morning, and I kind of had things to do. It wasn't work related, but I had things I had to get done, and I didn't really have enough rest. And I had a quick bath before I went to my dialysis, about half an hour, and then I was in dialysis, and I kind of felt very tired, obviously, and I think I felt more tired than usual because of the lack of sleep. So the downside to this job is obviously the following day I'm going to need to have nothing necessary to do if I'm going to do that job again. So at least have a chance to lie in later before my dialysis if I need to do that job. I don't think I could do a job between like 7:30 and 11:30. I think having a rest is definitely needed. So what I would probably do is, if I'm in the area again, I would try and get a job straight away from the northwest back home, and if I'm not getting it, I would then sort of see if that job's available in the future. But it's like a backstop, I would say. It's a backstop job if I'm having a problem. The positive thing about it is it's a good job for me to get me quite close to home and paid. It's quite hard for me to do from Manchester often. A lot of jobs from Manchester go to sort of London or Birmingham or Leeds or up north, and they don't really go to Peterborough very often. And if they do, they go really cheap. I never get them the price I want to pay for them. Anyway, this is much longer than I thought it was going to be. I'm sorry about that. Let's tell you my weekly stats for last week. As I said in my last video, it's not going to be very good, but it is true. It is my real world stats for me working off the CX in the way that I do. It's not meant to be a recommendation. It's just, this is what I've achieved. So I've worked 4 days this week. I've driven for 1,177 miles, 1177. I've earned £814, 814, and I've spent £160 and 16 pence on fuel. It's basically 160. That means that my net earnings after fuel was £654, 654, and I've earned not too bad rate to get a bit better, 55.55 pence per mile of all the miles I've driven, and that's after taking off fuel. I worked for 43 hours this week, and although this next figure I'm going to keep putting in for my stats, it's not important to me anymore. My average daily amount earned is £163 and 46 pence, so basically £163, 163. And again, I don't really care about this value, but my average amount earned per hour is £7.76 this week. Now, before I go, I've changed the metric that I focus on, and it's now the amount of money I earn over the week after paying for fuel, because I'm trying to get around about the $8.50 mark to cover my business costs and personal costs, and on this occasion it was $6.54, and I think the previous week was about $5.80 something. So I'm down on those 2 weeks. Right, so I'll leave that there. That's the end of that week. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll update you on the next one at work on Monday. Farewell.